to explore the eventual differences in the pattern association between predictors of learning achievement, such as students' socioeconomic characteristics and educational outcomes at the end of lower secondary school. We started with two core studies, so comparing 2019 and 21, okay? And then we moved towards a multi-core study because we also added the cohort of students ending lower secondary school in 2022. So these are preliminary results. We are still working on this. Okay. The main research question is, does the COVID-19 pandemic reinforce the existing achievement disparities and gaps? Okay. I was pretty sure that the colleagues before me presented results about school closure, so I would like to present something more from a psychological point of view. Okay? We know that the pandemic combines school closure with additional shocks for our students. We can remember the pandemic in Italy, and we know that there are a lot of possible sources of stress for our students. For instance, adverse health and economic impacts, the lack of social gatherings, increased social isolations. This stressor might impact on various aspects of children and adolescents' mental health, well-being, and learning, which in turn can impact students' achievements. So we are not only speaking about school closure, as my colleague said before. So this is not a real experiment. We cannot say, okay, everything is okay, but from tomorrow, half of Italy stay at home and follow lesson from remote, and the other part of Italy go to school. No, it's not the same. These are not the same students, okay? One of the major issues of concern is how the COVID pandemic shapes socioeconomic inequalities in educational opportunities. There are a lot of hypotheses. For instance, literature suggests that learning students from low SES families are likely to be more affected by COVID-19 related closure due to a lower access to remote learning, so digital divides. Okay? Then do a different response of the parents. For instance, how the parents how is the parents have concept on how they are able to be supportive toward their children. And how likely to benefit of additional learning resources, okay? And the change in peer environment. Here, we would like to share with you some insight from neuroscience, okay? We know that high exposure to repeated chronic stressor due to be students, pupils from disadvantaged families interfere with prefrontal cortex and hippocampus, okay? And high exposure to the COVID-19 stressors, because they were stressed, so we can remember it, okay? Can interact with this effect and enhance this effect. Why the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus are so important? Because they are involved in, for instance, the prefrontal cortex in working memory, executive functioning, okay, planning behavior, decision making. So the ability to concentrate while the remote learning goes on, for instance, okay. As for hippocampus, it's very important for retrieval from memory information. So this may impact achievement. Okay? So we are not only speaking about school closure. Okay. Another important issue concern is about students who were already low performers, students with difficulties with the learning achievement. Some studies propose that students, low achievers, are likely to be more affected by the COVID pandemic due to a low level of self-regulated learning. It is very important when the students were required to learn from remote. Further, also the more vulnerable students lack of the knowledge, the skill, that are necessary to generate additional learning gains. Okay? Another important point is the student time management. Okay? Low-achieving students are more likely to replace learning time by other activities that are more rewarding to them. For instance, play game. Okay? Our results are mixed and are mostly focused on the first wave, because in this part we speak about school closure. Okay. This is our design. So our main aim is to investigate if being a student during the COVID pandemic affected the association between previous achievement and outcomes at the end of upper secondary school, and also affected the path from socioeconomic background to educational outcomes. And we also focus on students with an immigrant background. Okay? So we try to build up a quasi-experimental design with a non-equivalent control group. Okay? It is not an experiment. We cannot control the other variables. Okay? This is very important. However, this is a design that allows us, and also others that adopt a similar design, to investigate if there is a difference in the differences between students. So these are our three core. So we have the control group, the control cohort, sorry, that are the students who entered the lower secondary school here about 1 year the COVID pandemic started. And then we have two different COVID cohort. COVID cohort is a very bad word, however. Okay? We started from the population data of INVALSI, and we selected a random sample of 2,000 classes, and we considered all classes, all students within the classes. So we have for math more than 100,000 students. Okay? We plotted here our design against the map of school closure for the UNESCO, because obviously these are not the same cohort. Okay? This cohort of students started the lower secondary school without the COVID pandemic, and then when they moved at grade 7, the COVID pandemic started when they were in the second half of the school here. Okay? Here we have the nationwide shutdown, and also the other very strict measure. Okay? Then here we have the academic break, summertime. Okay? And then the school opened again. Okay? We can remember this. The school opened again, but however, we moved from distance learning to digital integrated learning. Okay? However, we suddenly fell again in an emergency, a second wave. The virus changed, and the school started to be partially open, based on the higher risk and based on the school level. Okay? And then here we have the students of the cohort C 2021. Okay? What about the students of the cohort C 2022? They started the lower secondary school when there was no COVID, okay? But at the beginning of the lower secondary school, here there is the COVID outbreak in Italy, okay? So when they were in the second half of the school year, there was a school shutdown, okay? Then again, we move towards the last year. This is a very interesting year because here from the UNESCO map we see the schools are fully open, but we know that it was not like this, the situation, because also the virus changed, okay? And now didactic moved temporary online for students who were temporarily not attending school due to quarantine or for entire classes based on the number of positive cases. So these are our groups, okay? A lot of things happens, okay? Okay, let's move to the measure. So our outcome are the reachability estimated from the INVALSI mathematics side bands and from the INVALSI Italian language reading comprehension at most item banks. We are very proud as INVALSI of this measure because we can compare the outcomes. The item bank allows us to provide reliable measure at individual level. This is not a large assessment because we are required by the ministry to give a student feedback. So when we perform the automated test assembly, we need to have a very literal standard error measurement around our measure. Okay? And then what we have here, we have student clear achievement. Okay? We use the score on the INVALSI Italian paper and pencil test and also the math paper and pencil test. Okay, these tests are not anchored. Okay, we know it. However, our way to reason is that before the pandemic, based on the existing data on the past trend analysis, there are not so huge differences across the different courses. They are the students there is a little gap in terms of here, from one course to the other course. Another part of information is that all these tests are based on the same theoretical framework. And they are psychometrical based on the Rush model measurement. The Rush model measurement allows us to have a number of properties of the measure. Okay, they are not linked in the sense that we cannot have we cannot say the zero. We have two different zero. Okay, but we have a meaning for the zero because the zero is set by INVALSI on the average of that core. Okay. We also consider socio-demographic characteristics of the students. We use the ESCS in order to reduce the number, the attrition rate. We use the ESCS from grade 8. Okay. However, since the INVALSI changed the index in 2022, we harmonized the index across the different cohorts. Even for the ESCS, these are relative measures. Because every year, the ASCS is centered around the mean of the course. Okay, so we perform the same model also take into account, for instance, parent level of education that is fixed, doesn't change from course to course. But the ESCS is a relative measure, okay, because it is centered around the mean of the year. Okay, then we consider other variables, gender, male, female, income background, dummies, first generation, and the second generation, the reference category was not students, and we were interested in class. Okay, I know that the macro level is very important. Yesterday we presented a work on where we included also macro variables such as the percentage of need for our students ending upper secondary school. However, here we are interested in classes. Okay? So we consider the class composition based on class average peer achievement, mathematics and reading, and class average ESCS, the proportion suited with an immigrant background and the geographical background as a control. We will go further to this topic in the future. This is our multi-level modeling strategy. Okay? This is a classical strategy. We start with the happy model, and then that means the happy reduction test. We add the individual level variables, then the level 2 and higher levels variables. Then we add the random slopes for every one of our predictors. Our focal predictors are prior achievements, socioeconomic background, and immigrant background. Okay? And then at the end, we introduce a selected cross-level interaction. Okay? Since we are very interested in cross-level interaction, we center within the context of the level 1 variables. This is the path diagram of our final model for mathematics. To be fully sincere, I'm a structural equation model woman. I started by specifying this model with M+. I started for multi-group path analysis because we can consider the cohort of the groups, a sort of groups. Since we started with a model with only 2 cohorts, we perform multi-group path analysis. But today I will share with you the results by multi-level modeling, performed with LMA for package of unpackaged. So this is a different approach. Okay. here we can see that here we have the effect of the to be a student 2021 with respect to 2019, that is our reference variable, category, sorry, and then the effect of being students of 2022 versus 2019. Okay? Since we didn't have 2020, unfortunately, I didn't perform the trend. Okay, so I compare the period here. Obviously, we can then compare 2021 with 2022. Okay, so we can see here that most of the effect will be the respective directions. Okay, and we can see that there is that is low perform mathematics. The pre-achievement in mathematics, pre-achievement is before the pandemic started and before the students started the lower secondary school. They were at the primary school. Okay? Then we have Milan background, and also ESCS is at random. The slope is random. The slope is random means that it varies across different classes. Okay? However, we can see that the situation also is a little bit complex. Indeed, we see in literature that the results are different. Even results from the same database. We are all using the same database at the end. Okay? So, what happens here? Here we have a free-ways interaction with the class characteristics. Okay? So let's give a look to the interaction. As for the interaction, I follow ICE methodology. Okay? And the fruit effect package. Okay? Okay, these are the difference between student with an immigrant background, first generation immigrant, and the native by cohort. So we can see that the gap increase when I control for all the other cohorts. So I take into account also student reading abilities, ability 5. I don't talk about only mathematics, category 5, also including reading abilities. Okay? Then I move towards the effect, the between and within effect of SAS. We can see that within the classes, the socioeconomic gap widens, okay, from 2019 to 2021. Between classes, also the gap widens, okay? The results, we also can compute the contextual effect by subtracting from this, okay? But it is not the central of our book. Okay, so we can interpret an interaction from the two directions. So another important thing here is that the pandemic learning gap is larger for classes with lower class average SAS and within classes for students with lower SAS with respect to their class average SAS. Okay? What about 2022? Here the situation is even more complicated. We have a three-ways interaction. Here I reported all the coefficients you need to compute the simple slope and the differences between the simple intercept. Okay? But here we plotted the three different levels of average classes SAS, okay? And then the within effect. We can see that from high SAS classes, the within class SAS gap in mathematics widens, okay? It means that the pandemic learning gap is larger for students with relatively lower socioeconomic background, okay? A different pattern emerges in the other classes. For instance, if we give a look to this situation, we can see, okay, the gap narrows. However, we can see that the intercepts are different. We don't have the situation where all students or the intercept go up, but here we have a pandemic learning gap for higher SAS students with respect to the average. Okay? we can also obtain other information for the graph. For instance, these students are that one. The ability of the students here, with respect to average, is the same one that we can see here. So for these students to be in a classes with a low average ground correspond to a large academic gap. What about prior achievement in mathematics? Okay, in classes with low average mathematics, they find the positive effect of having a higher level prior achievement in mathematics, so before the lower secondary school started, is weaker in 2021 with respect to 2019. Okay? Otherwise, in classes with intermediate to high average mathematics, the difference between students studying more with prior mathematics and their peers widens. Okay? So we have an academic learning gap, especially for students studying more with mathematics than their peers. The situation is very similar for the 2022. These are the results about reading comprehension. Okay. Here we can see that the effect is smaller, okay, but for 2021 than for 2022. Okay. You can see here that there is also a tremendous look for being a second generation immigrant. However, the court doesn't moderate this aspect, so we don't give another look to this aspect. Okay? So these are the gap between students with an immigrant background, first generation immigrant, and the natives. Okay? The gap is large. Okay? It's large even because we take into account your achievement and socioeconomic background. Okay? Here we can see the situation for SCIS. Here again, if we focus on classes with an intermediate SCIS, the SCIS gap widens. Different situation emerge for other classes. Okay. Since the time is against me and the interaction a lot, I try to go to the conclusion. Here is the results, for instance, from 2022. We can see here that the association between student prior reading comprehension with respect to their classmate average level and outcome at the end of lower secondary school doesn't not vary as a function of the core. Okay? This is not a correction. Okay. So what we can see, what are our final remarks for our results. First of all, the COVID-19 pandemic has shed a renewed light on issues of socioeconomic inequalities and educational opportunities. However, we know socioeconomic inequalities already existed and our data are consistent with external literature on this. Okay? The COVID-19 pandemic is exacerbating existing SCIS-related inequalities and promises in mathematics for students sitting the INVALSI test in 2021, affecting most acutely low SCIS classes and students from a more disadvantaged background within classes. The widening gap in learning progresses between students with an immigrant background and the natives is also an issue of concern. A more heterogeneous picture emerged for SCIS-based inequalities mathematics achievement for students sitting in INVALSI test in 2022, as well as for reading comprehension. So these are the results about socio-demographic variable. As for learning progress, you can see that the effect of the pandemic is twofold. On the one hand, it weakens the positive effect of having a higher level prior achievement than classmates in classes with low average prior achievement. Okay? On the other hand, the gap between students studying more with early mathematics or reading comprehension and the classmate widens during the pandemic for students attending high average classes or intermediate classes. Thank you for